Welcome to Conversations with Friends. And I am delighted to be here today with somebody that I've known for many, many years. And I've known about her experience, but I don't think I quite understood what Susie Levan has been through and accomplished as a result of a major crisis, or actually more than one crisis in her life. You know, I think all of us at some point or another in our lives, we've gone through something pretty heavy, something that kind of changes the way we feel and think. But Susie, to me, as a result of a lot of inner work, went on to realize that she needed to be here to be able to do something of real importance and meaning, something meaningful in her life. And she has gone on to do it for I don't know how many years. Susie Levan, tell me how many years it's been.
Oh my gosh. Well, since 1994, I guess.
Yeah. And I wanted to just
let 30 years.
30 years. I just wanted to let people know some of the things that you have done. I mean, you've been a healer, you've been a Reiki master, you've been the editor of Balance Magazine, of publisher of Balance Magazine. You've had radio programs. You've had the list goes on and on of what you've done. A meditation teacher, but all of this is a result of what she went through, and we're going to learn about this today, right, Susie? And
yes.
Here it is. Here's this. Can you see it? Is it? Looks like it's upside down when I'm looking at it. Is it straight?
No, it's correct.
Good.
It's correct.
Okay. Yeah. And this is her book, and it's Getting to Forgiveness: What a Near-Death Experience Can Teach Us About Loss, Resilience, and Love. And, Susie, I mean, most people, we hear about near-death experiences, and I think sometimes we feel like we'd like to have one to understand what it's all about, but it's not necessarily going to happen. You're looking at me like, why would we want one? It means we've been through something really, really intense. And maybe we should start out by just, talking about what it was that you went through so many years ago and what you had to endure as a result of that.
Sure. I'm happy to do that. And thank you for having me on the show today, Meredith. It's truly an honor. And I have followed you for a very long time. And for sure, we've known each other in previous lives. I know for sure.
Absolutely.
So, a near-death experience, sometimes people hear it, something very ooga booga, very otherworldly, something that is not real, or that you had no oxygen in your brain, when in fact, there's so many different aspects to it. And the truth is, I didn't know what a near-death experience was until I had one. I was a type A personality. In the business world. I was chief operating officer of a public company for 16 years. And that's all I knew. It was like, do my work, try to get, move up the ladder, break that glass ceiling, and go to work every day. My husband was a banker who I married 3 months before we had a person. 3 people actually come into our home, and they were dressed in red, white, and blue. They came with automatic weapons, and they told our housekeeper, who was there with our 7-year-old daughter, that they were going to sit and wait for us to come home. We were working at the time. We get home, and of course, there they are waiting for us. And then to tell us that they're not here, it's not a home invasion, it's going to be a bank robbery. And that in the morning, my husband was going to get to the bank and unlock the safe, like he had a key, or it was, something he could do. And he was going to fill the suitcase, and that was the end of it. And so, besides being the most terrifying evening of your life with 3 men that had wigs on and sunglasses, truckers' hats, dressed in red, white, and blue, and told go to sleep because we're going to get up very early the next day, I decided I was going to be like a sleuth, very Columbo. Now, my husband, who's also very type A, has a different personality than I do, and he immediately fell asleep, believe it or not, because in his mind, he knew he had to function the next day and be, on top of whatever had to be handled. While I, on the other hand, hardly slept. And I was listening to two guys that were sitting outside our door talking. And I was paying attention to what the color of their tennis shoes was, if they had a right hand, a left hand, where their guns were. I was just paying attention to all the details. The next morning, they wake us. It was about 5 a.m. to tell us to go take a shower and get dressed. And I was wondering, why are they asking me to take a shower and get dressed when I'm assuming, this is an assumption, that my daughter and I and the housekeeper who was with us were going to spend the night. Stay at the house. And then I managed to listen to a conversation as I was walking from my daughter's bedroom, which was right next to the master, to the bathroom, and the mastermind had the phone like outside of his ear, and you could hear a woman's voice. It was almost like a Charlie Brown moment, like. And so that was another thing that stayed with me. And I was paying attention to all these little details. And then I realized he had taken off his glove. All these folks had gloves on. And his hand had a unique color to it, if you will. It was almost colorless. Something that looked like he had white paint on it or something. So, P.S., to make a long story short, we end up going downstairs, getting dressed. My husband is waiting because the bank doesn't open so early, but they decided that they're going to take my daughter and I. And so I get her dressed. We go downstairs, and I actually have to now get in the car, turn the car around so that the trunk is now facing the door. And now in those days, this is 1988, I had a hanging telephone inside the 4-door sedan Mercedes trunk. I was this close to dialing 911. I knew that would have killed us in a minute if I have even put my hand there. So imagine I'm like terrified of what's going to happen, and I'm a little nervous at the moment, but all the while I'm trying to stay very calm for my daughter, because one of the things I did not want to do is traumatize her. I now back up the car, and I'm now walking back into the house, and one of the people say, "Oh, no, you're not coming back in, you're getting back in the car." So I open up the back seat of the car, thinking that's where we're going to end up. And he pops the trunk and he says, "Oh no, you're going in the trunk." So my daughter looks at me, I look at her. Mind you, it's pitch black outside. It's December 21st or December 20th, because the 21st was the next day. I look at her, she looks at me, and I say, "You know what? We're going to be playing hide and go seek. And you're with mommy. And there's nothing to worry about." Again, I have no idea where that thought came from, other than some angelic being, some guide who told me, you need to calm your child, and this is the way to do it. Not that she was in any way hysterical or crying, because we were together. And she just thought it was normal that I was dressed and we were leaving together.
She didn't know
And
either.
so
She
had no clue.
Yeah.
She had no clue what was going on. 7 years old, by the way. So my husband managed to convince them to allow us to have a pillow for our heads so that we could at least land in the trunk. A damp and wet and moldy kind of trunk with junk in it, in some sort of form, to be comfortable. He, of course, was beside himself. He looked at me with those eyes of, "Oh my God, am I ever going to see you again?" And we had just gotten married 3 months earlier in September. So we were newlyweds, and now these people show up in our home.
So you're in that trunk. You're in the trunk.
We're now in the trunk.
Now what is going through you?
So we're in Coral Gables, which is where we lived at the time.
Yeah.
The bank is in Fort Lauderdale.
Long drive.
Well, I'm assuming I have nothing to do with that drive. In that, where are they taking us?
Oh, you didn't know? You had no idea. Yeah, but
I don't know where all of a sudden, where are we going? So they start driving. And all I could hear was the clippity clop of, you know, those little things on the road when you're driving on top of it. And the only lights we could see was when they would brake, the little red lights would turn on in the back. We're in a Mercedes sedan trunk. And the oxygen, when they were moving, would be flowing through the trunk, but not when they were not moving. So they were driving and driving and driving and driving. Again, they took my brand new wedding ring, my engagement ring, my watch. So I had nothing to kind of figure out where we were or what time it was or how much time had elapsed in all truth. So we're driving and driving and driving and driving. And I figured, you know what? I need to start singing songs or telling my daughter some stories. And that's what I start doing. I start telling her like little jokes, little stories. I start singing her little songs like, you know, you are my sunshine, my only. And so she would sing along. And I'm trying to keep her occupied. This is a 7-year-old who's thinking, I'm done with this, you know, game. When is Alan coming? And at some point in time, they stop and a van pulls up. You could hear a van pull up, you know, like one of those sliding door vans. And all you could hear is the same voice that was on the telephone, a woman's voice saying the same, whatever she was saying. I couldn't hear it. It was muffled. Yeah. And it was, so she was giving them instructions. The two guys that were part of this team were the guys in the car. The mastermind stayed behind with Alan, who was going to get the cash at the bank with my car. Meanwhile, they just drive and drive and drive. And at some point in time, again, it was a very lengthy drive. I don't know where we are. I am thinking that all the while we've been left to die in the Everglades. That was the only thing that I could imagine.
Were you petrified? Were you petrified then, even though you weren't showing it with your daughter? I mean, you know,
internally, I was terrified. Internally, I was terrified. Internally, I was saying to myself and praying, "Dear God, where are we? Or is this where we're going to die today?"
Wow. At what point, Susie, did you have this near-death experience where you actually did see the light in the trunk of the car?
So actually, I had two things really happen. So at some point in time after we stopped, Lauren wanted to pee. I told her, go ahead and pee. She wouldn't pee. But I said to her, you know, Mommy didn't sleep much last night. Why don't you close your eyes? Let's take a little nap. I'm thinking we're going to die of asphyxiation because there's no longer any oxygen coming from the outside. It's getting incredibly hot inside this trunk. It must be daylight. I have no idea. If it's 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, I have no idea. It was very hard to judge, believe it or not, just based on the routes or however they got to where we were. And my focus was trying to keep her busy. So I literally took a moment and for whatever reason, came to me. I started praying the 23rd Psalm. And in the 23rd Psalm, when it was over, which, by the way, was a prayer that I've heard many, 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 many times at Jewish funerals where they pray the 23rd Psalm. So I kind of knew it by heart.
You were Catholic, right? Weren't you?
No,
you were born.
No, I was Jewish.
Oh, you had converted. You converted, I think I read.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Many years earlier, many years earlier.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I started to pray the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. So by the time I ended that prayer, and this was, by the way, in my mind, I never spoke it. I said at the end, God, please take me and save my daughter. And at that moment, at that moment, boom, all of a sudden, and my eyes were closed, I'm now traveling 1,000,000 miles a minute through this tunnel of light. Some point in time, I stopped traveling and I'm now surrounded by light, by beings of light who are speaking to me telepathically. I have this very large being of light behind me, who I later find out is Archangel Michael, who tells me that he's been with me for many lifetimes, protecting and watching over me. And I have these other beings of light that are speaking to me. They proceeded to show me where my husband was at the bank on a white screen, if you will, to show me his anguish, his own personal fear, and wanting to, and putting money in this suitcase, and trying to just do this as quickly as possible so that they could call him. One of the things they had told him was, as soon as they're far enough away, they would call him to tell him where we were. So his goal was to hurry up. And mind you, he had to call the president of the bank. He had to call people who have all these keys. He has no keys to open up a safe, mind you. Most executives don't do that. So they're now showing me this little mini white screen I'm watching. It's like a little TV of what's going on. I wish I could connect with him and let him know that we're still alive and it's okay, and hopefully we'll be able to survive, and how much I loved him and how much I cared for him, and how much, I was just trying to help him whatever way I could from where I was. But of course I couldn't. Then a few minutes later, they gave me almost like a life review on that same screen. All of a sudden, I got a life review of my own life up to that moment in time. I was 38 years old at the time, and I was given this life review, which was really very eye-opening, as you can well imagine, of who I hurt, who I needed to forgive, who I needed to, be and show and experience, and seeing your life from this perspective was a totally, aha moment, if you will, something like you've never experienced before. And I did, like I say, I didn't know any of this existed. I never knew anything about a near-death experience. I never knew that there would be beings on the other side speaking to me telepathically, or that an archangel could possibly be standing next to me. So I'm experiencing all of this, and then at some point in time, I start talking to these beings of light through my thought. It wasn't my voice, or my mouth wasn't moving. And I ask, where's my daughter? Because I'm the one that I think is in this tunnel with these beings of light. And they say, look down. So I literally look down, and I see us both lying in fetus positions together in the trunk. And I said, are we alive? Oh yeah, you're very much alive, and you're not going to die, and you're going to come back. You have a lot to accomplish yet. And you have a lot to give, and you and your daughter will survive this.
So I want to jump ahead here, because this is just absolutely, just to hear it, I read about it, but to hear it is, we all have ideas about near-death experiences, but you're one who's actually had the experience, the real experience. You did get to the bank, and you got saved. Everything did work out in terms of, right?
Yeah, but the miracle that happened, I don't know if you read in the book.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, tell me.
Was, in order for us to survive, when I came back into my physical body, as fast as I went up into this tunnel, I'm now swooshing all the way back, and I now, there's like a thud. My daughter was napping, remember? She wakes up and starts crying and says to me, Mommy, what is that opening in the ceiling? In the top of the trunk. Now, there was no opening there prior to me going through the tunnel of light.
Right.
And now there's a baseball size opening that's allowing oxygen to flow in. We could see the electrical wires. We could see the clouds in the sky. And I say to her, Mommy was just with the angels and with God. Everything is going to be okay. So now this miracle saved us and kept us from dying of asphyxiation. And when these cars all started careening to come get us, which was now 11 o'clock in the morning, 4 or 5 hours later, by the way, they unlock us expecting I'm sure my husband was thinking we'd all be dead. We pop out of there like a jack in the box. And I immediately turn around and close, they closed the trunk, and I was hoping to show him this opening show him how we survived. It was gone.
Whew.
Miraculously appeared and miraculously closed, because it wasn't for them, it was for us to keep us alive. That to me is like the second thing. It was like the two big miracles that occurred that I never expected or would have ever thought people would believe it.
It's interesting because you tell it, like just so brilliantly with every detail, like you still remember every single thing that happened. And
it's so
I think
vivid in my soul.
Yeah. So things did work out, because as you say, you were able to get out and you both, went on and everything was fine. But then I want to focus a little bit on what happened to you afterward, because most people would think everything is fine and now you go on with your life. It didn't happen that way, did it?
Not so much. Yeah. And unfortunately, from the outside, everything looked fine, because luckily we were not, injured physically or raped or beat up or anything of that nature. But emotionally, physically, spiritually, I was a shell of a woman, even though I went through this entire miracle and went to the other side, spoke to beings of light, had a life review. All of that didn't matter. I was now literally stuck in a post-traumatic stress scenario where I was unable to function. And I just kept replaying all of this fear that I had been holding on to, where I was totally paralyzed. The only word I could use, I was paralyzed both physically and mentally, where I was unable to function. My husband, I was living in a hotel. I never went back to my home of 6 years.
You couldn't, huh? You just couldn't go back.
I was unable to go back to my home. I went back for a minute and I literally passed out in the driveway. I fainted in the driveway because the vision of these men in my foyer were it just kept replaying and I couldn't sleep. I wasn't eating. I wasn't functioning. My husband was smart enough to take me to the Marriott down in Kendall, off of near Dadeland, I guess. And I spent 3 months there, and he would come back and forth and sleep there with me. I could not go back home. Took him till January. This was December. Took him till March or April to find a home that had high gates. Security was my number one thought at that point in time. I was terrified. The weirdest thing is you go through this amazing spiritual experience where you know that you're protected and God's with you and angels are with you, and yet you can't live your real life, your physical human life, without this post-traumatic stress that no one seems to know what it is or how it looks. And unfortunately, even my own family would say, get over it, you're fine. They didn't get it. I kept saying, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I'm not okay.
And luckily, you became okay through, I think it was it your husband that actually brought you to somebody, or you found somebody that turned out to be a healer? I think you went for a massage or something like that. So it actually worked with you and helped get you out of, all of the suffering that you really experienced after what happened.
So the massage was a trip that we had taken, and I really had to get let go or cried or had any emotion whatsoever. I was very robotic, and literally paralyzed, where my husband, I couldn't walk. I could not walk. It affected my body in such a way that I was locked. And so we went to Vail, Colorado, where, remember, this is Christmas week. We had already organized this trip to take our kids. We had 5 kids together combined. And so we had organized this trip to take them skiing. And I went ahead and left because I felt that it was the most important thing for them. And even for me, I needed to get out. I needed to leave the scene of the crime, if you will, the state. And I couldn't function, couldn't go walk upstairs. I'm not kidding you, the word is paralyzed. The kids went off to ski school. They went skiing, doing their thing. During the day, Alan would take care of me, and he happened to see this massage therapy area because, you know, they have a physical therapy, massage therapy, because if people get hurt on ski in ski areas. So he decided, he asked me, what do you think? Would you like me to take you? I was in such pain, physical pain, because apparently, which I did not know at the time, I had held all that fear and all that energetic stress, protecting and not traumatizing my daughter within my body. And so that was like this rock on my back. It was like a shell on my shoulders, my spine, and that was just really, the pain was excruciating. And so I managed to get a cane and walk to this massage therapy with him. And the minute the woman touched my back, I just totally, and I don't mean, she didn't even touch it. I could feel the heat of her hands. I already now had a sheet wrapped around me, and she was going to start working on me. And I totally broke down like a dam, you know, it just opened up. The flood waters. I couldn't stop crying. I could not stop crying. She held me like I was a baby and just let me cry the entire session. I came back 2-3 more days while we were there, where she did a little bit of physical work, you know, massage work, all of which was very short-lived, because again, I had not dealt with the reality of what I really went through.
Yeah.
This was just temporary relaxation. When we got back to Florida, back to the hotel, by the way, because again, it was March or April when we finally moved into a home, which, by the way, I was totally still in bed in a dark room and in total fear. We now had 24-hour wagon hut guards outside our home because I was terrified that they were going to come back to finish the job because we didn't die. At some point in time, I just sat on my knees and started to pray on one night where I just couldn't sleep anymore. And I was, you know, when you don't sleep, you don't have any REM going on. And so you're wired in such a way that you really can't function, speak or think or even, you know, have any connection with anything or anyone. So I got on my knees and I said, God, I know you didn't bring me back or keep me alive for me to live in this darkness and in this fear and with this energy of pain. Please help me. I need help. Send someone. So ironically, that night I had a dream. And that dream was to go to this location, which was go get a manicure in South Miami. And I could see the building. I could see that there were steps going up to this location. And the dream was the person that you're going to sit next to is going to be the person that's going to help you.
Oh.
Now, mind you, imagine what my poor husband must be feeling. She's a nutcase. I mean, I don't even know the name of the place. I don't know where I'm going, but I had the dream and I should follow it. So I don't know what gave me the strength to say to him, on Saturday, I want to go do this because I don't know where I'm going. Just drive to South Miami. I'll keep looking and I'll know when you get there where it is. That's exactly what happened. He was kind enough to say, okay, I'll drive you. I made, and even the time was given to me when this person was going to be there. So, P.S., I come in, they sat me down next to this person. And I'm getting my manicure. And I look at her and I say, hi, how are you? My name is Susie. What's your name? She says, Suzanne. I said, oh, Suzanne, what do you do for a living? Which, by the way, I hadn't talked to anybody in 4 months. All right. I don't even know what came out of me. I was like this friendly person. And she goes, oh, I'm a pastoral counselor and hypnotherapist. I said, really? Do you have a card? She handed me her card. I get my manicure, I leave. I said, do you mind if I call you, sometime in the next day or so we can talk? She says, absolutely. Well, I called her that day and we spoke for 3 hours. I knew she would be the one that was going to help me.
And she really did. I mean, she was
Oh
the
no,
one.
she was the one
was
that healed me.
healer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to go to, I mean, over months, I think it was, or was it years that you did? It took a long time, right? It didn't
Years.
happen once. It's
Oh
not
no, years.
uh,
Years.
Yeah. And little by little, and I'm sure that your family was probably ecstatic, right? To just see you come back to, a normal life, bit by bit by bit.
Never the same person, but yes, normal, whatever that means. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Normal meaning that, like you said before, you couldn't walk, you couldn't function. Here you've been, COO of a big company, and
Yeah.
and then suddenly now, you're in bed most of the time. And then as I want to get into this, what happened to you as a result, which was you had this major realization that you were going to be here to serve and to help others. And did you? I mean, your resume is just, it's nonstop of all the things that you went on to accomplish. So was it just like, was that an awakening? Was that some kind of a vision that you had of your new life? It was a new life, wasn't it?
It was like a different soul.
Wow.
That's what I call it. It's almost like my soul was replaced with a new soul. And I was told that I was coming back to empower women, and that was my life's work. And I had to figure out what that meant. At the time, I had no idea what that meant. Mind you, I worked in a totally man, covered business. Everything that they did, it was all about men. And I was one or two of the few token women in the company. So it was about empowering women. And that's really, and I went back to school. I became a pastoral counselor, just like Suzanne, and a hypnotherapist, a teacher of meditation, as you said, and Reiki master, and life coach. And I started, obviously, and I was channeling, by the way, which was also fluky and different. I would walk streets and I would turn off lights and telephones, and energetically, I was having all sorts of, stuff that I never knew existed or what was going on with me, and nobody could explain it. And this was, long before you could just talk to somebody and they would explain it, because they had no idea, like, what's going on. I don't know.
And Susie, in those days, we're going back to the 80s, right? I mean, people weren't so, and I know myself, having gone on a spiritual path in those years, people weren't so into these things. Even meditation was considered weird, right? And I mean, there were always people doing some of this, but it wasn't out there, everywhere. And so you were getting into a whole new world that, not that many people even knew about. And we didn't have Zoom, we didn't have the internet, right? I mean, all of this. So
exactly.
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
I had no one. I didn't have a kumbaya group that I could turn to, that could direct me, that could guide me, that could feed me knowledge. It was all, I had to find it myself.
So what would you say now, and with this amazing book, Susie Levan, Levan, I'm sorry,
It's okay.
French way, getting to forgiveness. What would you say the story in your book, what you went through, how you went on to really, really help so many women and men, everyone, with your spiritual way of thinking and the work that you've done. Is there one message that you would like to impart to everyone that you meet?
Well, the biggest message, that's a really good question, Meredith. The biggest message I was given was, make sure that you meditate every day. Mm-hmm. And that to share that message with as many people as you can. Now, in those days, I had no idea what meditation even was. And Suzanne taught me how to meditate. And in fact, I have 2 channeled meditations on my website with the music of Stephen Halpern. I was lucky enough to create 2 channeled meditations. So if you go to gettingtoforgiveness.com/meditation, you can download those for free. and those were channeled. And so that was the biggest message that I could give you is meditation is how you really connect with God, Goddess, all that is, the universe, and that they're waiting to talk and feed you messages and direction and support and love.
Beautiful, Susie. And I just know that you have helped so many people and you continue to. So you're really, would you say you are on a mission? It's not something that you say, okay, I've been there, done that. It is something, what do you think the world needs now? People do need, because people are suffering. So many people are suffering, right? Going through,
It's
trauma,
so hard right now.
problems. What do you feel? I mean, meditation absolutely is, I think for me too, meditator.
Right.
Brahma Kumaris,
Right.
meditation is just so much part of
It's
our
key.
life.
Right.
Yeah. But what would you say people need now? Would that be it, or is there something else that you want to share that you think?
There's so many different things going on in the world that you say to yourself, where do you start? I have to say, it's like a song. What the world needs now is love.
Mm.
And people need to be more empathetic with others, and to see, them through kind of like the namaste thing. I see your soul, you see my soul, and love. Love is the only thing you carry with you, and it's the only thing you take with you when you die.
The feeling I'm getting just from, having read your book and just getting to be with you now, for this short amount of time, is that you really are a messenger. You are here to give, and you give so much of yourself. I mean, again, when I read your resume and see all that you do, it's like you go from one to another, all with the idea of helping people who are not always everybody's in pain, but people are just, it's fearful today and confused and all of these things. And I want to end maybe with just the thought and that there is a way out of it, isn't there? Out of depression, out of suffering, out of no matter what you've been through. And you went through even more suffering than that. And I just want to say at the end, the loss of your daughter, the loss of Lauren, right?
Yes.
The little
Yes.
girl that was in the car, with you, she passed many years later, right? And nothing to do with this, as I understand it.
Unrelated, yeah.
Yeah, so you've had definitely.
We've all had our share of suffering and grief and life, right? It's all about
absolutely.
What is our soul contract, if you will, and what is it that we have to go through in order to continue to grow our soul. And I believe that Lauren came into our life to save me and to help me survive in that trunk, because I know that I probably wouldn't have survived had she not been with me, because I was totally focused on her safety and well-being. And she was actually, I was not even supposed to get pregnant. I was told that I would never have more than one child. So here she comes, and she was my second baby. So everything is, I really believe everything happens for a reason. And of course, I grieve her to this day, every single day. I miss her dearly. She was a very special young woman, and she would reiki her friends when she was a baby. She was young. She'd see me doing it with I had a massage table in one of my rooms, and she would do it to her friends when they would get a boo-boo. Mommy, I put my hands on them and they felt better. I mean, she was just a very advanced spirit. And yeah, so, we miss her dearly.
Yeah, and I I understand that you just can never get over that. And yet, what I see with you is that everything that you have been through, these really rough times in your life, serves to be able to go out and do something more for others. And to, I'm not saying we can get people on the spiritual path, but what you can do is give them messages, inspire them, show them that there's another way. And that's what I feel about you. You're showing people there's another way to live, and you've overcome so much, and they can too. And that's what I take from you, with all
But, I also think that the other thing that's very important is that without having counseling. Counseling really helped me heal. Both grief counselors as well as the pastoral counseling and the hypnotherapy that I did receive from Suzanne. Without that, I don't know if I would have been where I am today. So I highly recommend that anyone in depression or in any kind of emotional pain, that they find someone that they can connect with, that they, can work through their issues, because everyone needs a witness. When I went to grief counseling at the beginning, all I did was sit there and cry. That's all I did. And you know what? Just having a witness there, as opposed to your family or other people seeing you just break down every single day of the week. I needed that witness, and it helped. It helped tremendously.
Important message, Susie, to get help. You cannot do it alone when you're in.
You cannot do it alone. No matter how well educated you are or how smart you are, you can't do it alone. This is really outside of your realm of ability to heal. You need someone to be there to walk you through the process, through the pain, and witness your experience with you, and to hold you. Hold you in the light, hold that space for you.
And uplift you, in a sense, uplift you out of the suffering, that you're going through. What I'm taking from you is there is hope and there is another way. And the book is marvelous. It's very touching. I couldn't put the book down. And I just want to congratulate you on an amazing life, that you continue to lead and help so many. And
I'm blessed with 12 grandchildren, Meredith. So
wow, that's a lot of grandchildren.
It's a lot of grandchildren. So
Beautiful.
Life is good. And even though, life happens, as they say, there's still a rainbow at the other end.
Beautiful. And you are extraordinary. You are an extraordinary human. You really are. Extraordinary soul, we say with the Brahma Kumaris, because we believe we're souls. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me.
It was my honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And
love and light to you.
Take all the love and light. Yeah, I love it. And I want to thank our technical director, Amar Murillo, who's here this week, and just a very important part of the Brahma Kumari Center in Miami. And so thank you, Amar. And thank you again, Susie. Om Shanti.